People of Reddit who knew celebrities before they were famous. How different do they act now? I live in the town where Dolly Parton grew up, and practically everyone above the age of 50 who grew up here claims to either be a distant relative of Dolly's, or they claim to know her in some way. Everyone has their story of the time they met Dolly. It's pretty obvious, but regardless of who you talk to, Dolly has always been sweet and generous, but everything has simply grown exponentially due to her fame. Examples are the millions of books she gives out for free to children around the globe each month, or how she gave out $10,000 cash to many of my close friends after their houses burned in a fire a couple of years back. Thousands of people are employed here and work for one of the businesses she owns, and it's a tad strange to see when you walk in. But the birthing center at the local hospital is funded by and named after her. I honestly can't think of one person I know who doesn't like her. Dolly's heart has only gotten bigger because of fame. My FIL worked for a high-end business in Southern California in the 80s, and he ended up running straight into Dolly as he was rushing out a swinging door at the same time she was walking in. As he says, she chest bumped me from 5 feet out, but as he was apologizing profusely, she cut him off and said, "It's okay, darling, but next time you want to get physical, try buying me a drink first." Then she winked and started giggling as she went on her business, and he and his 2 co-workers who saw it happen have been smitten with her ever since. He met some other celebs working there, but goddamn, that's the one I'll always be jealous of. If anybody deserves to be America's sweetheart, it's Dolly. I went to school with Rupert Grint, Ron Weasley from Harry Potter. I was into acting too, so we had done a few school plays together. He was really nice, very chill, a good laugh. I haven't seen him since school days, but he kept coming to classes whenever he wasn't filming and was always happy to chat about the movies. Sometimes he'd need a little break from so many people wanting to talk and would come and hang out in the library, and honestly, you'd never know he was in the biggest film series at the time. Honestly, I think a lot of these answers boil down to whether they want fame or not. Rupert loved what he was doing, but didn't care about being famous and having people kiss his arse. Just a nice, normal kid. I know this is not what the question is asking. It's sort of the other way around. Have you met a famous person who is as nice as people say? But as it's about Tom Hanks, it has to be told. My cousin worked at a legal chamber in London, and they were told a film crew was coming in to use it for a few weeks. They were told not to engage with the actors and just go about their business. The film The Da Vinci Code, and, as per the above spoilers, Tom Hanks was in it. For a day or 3, they all did as they were told, and kept their heads down until eventually Tom Hanks came and knocked on their lunchroom door. Basically just said, "Saws for messing up where you work. Can I join you for lunch?" And then it was on. Every day, at breakfast and lunch, where time permitted, Tom Hanks was hanging out with these guys, like he was a new employee, reading the newspaper, making cups of tea, getting in the bacon rolls or whatever, calling people's family members to say, "Hi, it's Tom Hanks," for a laugh just to see this reaction. Basically, after a couple of weeks, was just like one of the team. Everyone is on first-name terms, just genuinely nice. Last day he made sure to say bye to everyone. He brought them all some kind of gift. I can't remember what, but it was really low-key, inexpensive, but personal, which was a nice touch. Just this really wholesome time for everyone. People say Tom Hanks is an absolute lad, and it transpires he is. When I was really young, I'd go to the reptile park, originally owned by Bob Irwin, and passed on to his son, Steve. Steve was always nice, would do all the lizard and croc shows, and would hang out and chat afterward. My dad would take me there occasionally, and Steve would seem to remember us and treat everyone like an old buddy. This was before he became famous, obviously, and the small reptile park became the Australia Zoo. In my final year of high school, I got into the zoo for work experience, and they let me stay on. Steve was rarely there, and when he was, he'd avoid guests because they would swarm him and he'd get nothing done. But when I did run into him, he was always super nice and still acted like that old friend. Didn't say crikey nearly as much as you'd think. That's definitely something Aussies say, but he really played that up for the cameras as his catchphrase. Unfortunately, he died later that year, so right up till the end, he was just a lovely person. In typical Aussie fashion, he was there to do the job that he wanted to do, which was to be with the animals, not piss-farting around with the visitors having his time wasted. I imagine that filming, international travel, and prioritizing family left him little precious time for the park. So what time he got, he took, and presumably wouldn't want to waste a minute. My mom used to ride the bus to work in downtown Cleveland with Steve Harvey's first wife. Apparently, she supported him while he was trying to get his career started. And then basically, as soon as he got successful, he divorced her for a younger woman. My mom always hated him because she felt that he treated his first wife like shit and always yells "bastard" at the TV when he pops up. A friend of mine is buddies with Paul Rudd, says he's exactly the same and a great human. When I went on a holiday to LA, This Is 40 was about to premiere. I was maybe 18 at the time. My mother and I got into our hotel's elevator, and there stood Megan Fox and Paul Rudd. My mother was going off full Karen about how silly it was that they blocked off roads in this town for a premiere of a shit movie. She had zero clue who they were. I knew. We three gave each other wry smiles as my mother went off on the film and the road, etc. for a few minutes before telling them to have a nice day. My grandpa owned a grocery store in Miami in the late 70s. Wesley Snipes and his friends once stole some candy from his store, and when he caught them, he let them have it. Since then, Wesley and his friends were regulars. Once, Wesley left his bike in front of the store, and it got stolen. It was a pretty bad area. My grandpa gave him his old bike that he kept in the back of the store. My uncle took over in 2001 when my grandpa died. In 2007, he came back to the store while my uncle and cousin were there to ask about my grandpa. My uncle said they talked for a little over an hour about how my grandpa treated him like a son. When he found out my grandpa passed, he felt guilty he didn't visit sooner. He embraced my uncle and cousin and left. My uncle said he told him they planned on having the building repainted while they talked. About a week later, a crew of painters arrived and told my uncle they were already paid to have the building repainted. Such a genuine dude. I can't remember before my aunt became famous. Alex Kingston played River Song in Doctor Who, but I remember going to her wedding and meeting Matt Smith, who played the Doctor in Doctor Who, and him fixing my flip-flop, the best moment of my life ever. I met Matt Smith too, but he was already famous. I was dating a guy who lived in the same fancy church-renovated building as him. One night, I was waiting outside for my date. He was late, and Matt Smith walked by. I smiled and said hello. A few weeks later, he was on Top Gear and was asked about his experiences with creepy fans. He then proceeded to describe me, saying, I looked 11, I was 19, and that I was hiding in the bushes waiting for him outside his building. You filthy liar, Matt Smith. Also, I licked your mail as revenge? Bruno Mars's mom was a bartender at a local karaoke dive bar that I was a regular at. At the time, his biggest hit was The Hook for Billionaire by Travie McCoy. Anyway, she was selling tickets for an upcoming concert he was having, and she asked our table if we wanted to buy some. My friend declined, and she exclaimed, "Why not? He's my son." I ended up getting a couple of tickets, despite not knowing any of Bruno Mars's songs. It turned out to be one of the best concerts I've ever been to. The guy knows how to put on a good live show. The tickets were only $40 each, I think. His opening act was a local group of large Polynesian men singing Motown who went by the name Nessian 9. They were pretty good too. The next time he was in town for a concert, he had blown up and the tickets were going for $400. I would have loved to see him again, but not at that price. His mom was really nice, down to earth, and a pretty good singer herself. At least she lived long enough to see her son's success. My dad was good friends with Will Smith before the Fresh Prince days. Will actually showed him the pilot before it aired. Fast forward however many years to After Earth, and Will invited us on the set. His first words, when he saw my dad 10+ years later, were, "The Philly crew is back." Both Will and Jaden are the sweetest people you'll ever meet. I was in Vegas a few years ago, won big at blackjack, so went to a restaurant that was way out of my normal price range. Our waitress was telling us about some of the celeb guests that go there, and I asked who was the nicest. She said Will Smith and his family were in once, and they were legit the nicest people. As a fan, it was good to hear. Went to middle school with Megan Fox for a bit. She rode my bus, and she mostly kept to herself. Most of the guys would fight over who was going to sit next to her, but she was very shy and didn't really have much to say. I went to college with Joe Keery, aka Steve Harrington in Stranger Things. He was my college boyfriend's sweet mate and just the nicest guy. His hair has always been dreamy and amazing. The last time I saw him was at a viewing of The Hateful Eight after we graduated, and he still made a point to come over and say hi. I went to junior high with Norah Jones. She was the most sincere and serene person. She was fun to talk to, and she never gave a hint of who her father was. The night she won all those Grammys was very telling that she hadn't changed a bit. I believe this. I've met her twice after her shows, and she was super nice and took pictures and signed autographs. Once she had a little dog with her. I didn't expect someone as famous as Norah Jones to actually come out and meet fans after her show, but she did. My mom is friends with Johnny Knoxville's cousin. She met him once and had no idea who he was. She said he was nice and funny as all hell. She didn't realize until years later she'd even met him until I showed her one of his movies. From what I gather, he's a normal dude and pretty hilarious. I was living in Tennessee a few years ago, and a friend and I decided to go to Knoxville and bar hop for a bit. Then go to this tiny dive bar at the end of the night where there was someone on stage playing and this whole big table where everyone was cheering every time a song ended. My friend and I started chatting with them, and they said that he was their brother on stage and they came out to support them. So my friend and I buy a round for the table to show appreciation for their supporting family. Afterward, they ask us to sit down with them. They buy us both a Jack on the Rocks. And then this little old lady asks me, "Do you know who we are?" I reply no, and she goes, "I'm Johnny Knoxville Grandma." Turns out Johnny's whole family was there, supporting his uncle. Some of the kindest, nicest people you'll ever meet. And yes, we all did do a shot of Jack together. What a great night!